subject of this week is you keep the pain, we take your money. Well, how to brief a marketing consultant. This came about because of a discussion that Chris Ogle and I overheard between two small business owners regarding the best way to promote their separate companies. After some discussion, it became obvious that they both believed that marketing was just some sort of black art, especially where it involved any online efforts and communications. And it was just too difficult for them to do. Marketing in their eyes is something that they would never master. They imagine if they just appointed someone, handed over some money, the consultant would know what to do and they would somehow magic up new clients and new leads for them. This got Chris and I thinking, what should an SME do when appointing a marketing consultant? Is it a case of just handing over the money? Or how and should they prepare to help ensure that the consultant they appoint delivers not only what they want, but also what they need? Or is it always a case when appointing an external consultant that, as Kevin said yesterday, the SME keeps the pain and the consultant takes the money? As usual, I'm joined by a panel of experts from the brand and marketing community, so we've been on the end of many good briefs and many bad briefs between all of us, and I'm going to start with Jonathan this week, who, as everyone by now knows, has a wealth of experience in the marketing and advertising world, whilst working for some of the world's biggest advertising agencies with some of the world's biggest clients. But some of the lessons learned there, I'm sure, can be applied to SMEs as well, Jonathan.
Yes, they can. And I have written a lot of briefs for marketing service companies for all descriptions, so for all the disciplines that can come into can be centrally controlled from a marketing department. And the rules are basically the same, which is about clarity, but we'll come on to that in a minute.
Okay, and I'm also joined by Kevin, who is an expert with lots of experience in social media and also with the IT and technology involved in the media world generally. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, and in this case I think some of my background with outsourcing, hence I was able to coin that little phrase yesterday, will probably be quite useful for people to share from. Sure.
Okay, and Catherine, you're on the end of many of these kind of weird and wonderful briefs. Perhaps you could add some light there for us.
Yeah, I'm going to say from an accompanying point of view, my company is CB Graphics, my background is print, so I've never actually used a marketing consultant, but I've obviously worked with people who do. Yeah, I've been working for myself the last 8 years, and it's quite a varied sort of market. So yes, whilst I'm not a marketing guru myself, yes, it's an interesting question, one which I'm looking forward to explore.
But the question applies also to designers, because I've been on the end of some very vague and woolly briefs that are almost impossible to meet.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's having a clear understanding of what that brief is to start with, isn't it?
Exactly. So, Jonathan, you said in your intro that you had some clear ideas and some thoughts and lots of experience on this issue. Perhaps you'd like to start today's discussion off.
Okay. Well, I think you have to start off with having an understanding of what is the content of your marketing audit. Now, if you are scared of this whole marketing arena, then obviously you won't have conducted that audit, but you should brief a marketer to do the audit if you can't do it yourself. Remember that the audit covers the 4 areas of influence, if you like, the stakeholders. So that is your customers, your staff, your suppliers, and the people who own your business, so shareholders or yourself. Each group should be interviewed. Doesn't have to be, it's an audit, it doesn't have to be every single person, but a representative sample of each of the 4 groups. Each of those 4 groups should be effectively analysed and reported back to provide you with the basis as the starting point from your audit. From that, you should then have some clarity about how do you write or set objectives, and that then SMART objectives, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and a timetable should give you the ability to work out how to work with a marketing supplier of some description, and it should be an equitable agreement. In other words, you negotiate at this stage what it is you are looking for them to achieve and how you want to get your remuneration sorted out, etc. But I think you have to agree very clearly what your objectives are, and any other approach is, if people don't know what they're supposed to achieve, you can't expect results that are measurable, relevant, etc. But I think other people will have an input on that.
Yeah.
If you've got a big doubt about it, effectively ask one of us, because we can come back and say, right, this is how you need to get on with it. Also, key to remember is that work with people you can work with. Don't sort of go out and necessarily say, oh, well, he's got the best track record, because if you can't communicate with a guy or girl, you won't be able to work with them. Anyway, that's my bit for the moment.
Okay, Kevin, you've actually done a lot of commissioning in the past, and getting the brief right, as Jonathan alluded to at the very beginning, getting the audit, knowing where you are, is probably the most important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And following on from establishing smart objectives, you probably also want to think about having some controls in place, thinking, well, how do I know this is on track? What objective measures am I setting in place? And again, we're back to the smart objectives that Jonathan was talking about. But for me, to be able to differentiate through using the outsourced service, ask yourself, where is value being created here? So it's okay to outsource something where it's something that not much value is created in, and it's repetitive, and there's not much value, it's repetitive, it's easily done. Then that's probably something that can be easily outsourced. And if you look at, say, for example, the government, for example, these days a lot of exams, a lot of exams are done with these days. People just highlight boxes and it goes through an OCR, and a company in India processes that and gives people results in 2 or 3 months. I mean, that's basically how it works. So in that case, marking the exam is not a high value part of education, but it's nevertheless important, repetitive, so that's the sort of thing that can be sent out. So, I think of, say, a farmer, and he's got some leftover potatoes or whatever, and he decides he wants to go into the meal creation business. Well, there exactly is your marketing challenge right there. How does he take, half a ton of spuds and turn those into chilled chips that people want to buy? And that's the point where actually you have to think through your marketing strategy.
Okay, so beyond potato gratin or oven fried chips, Catherine, when you're busy working with clients and everything, how easy, or what in your experience is it that the clients frequently miss out when they're briefing you?
Well, as part of that marketing strategy is possibly taking a fresh look at whether it's a fresh product, a fresh project of some sort. Looking at the target audience to start with is pretty crucial. It's no good advertising a new potato gratin product if it's for children. That's going to have smiley faces and lots of bright colours on it, as opposed to something a little more sophisticated, perhaps a finest range of some sort for some supermarket we're not going to name. So realising a target audience and looking at where you're actually going to place that product or project or event or whatever it is that you're putting on, because all of the rest of that then has a huge bearing on how that particular project goes forward, how it's designed, how it's promoted, and how people see it. So those clear objectives come right from the very beginning, really. As everybody else has mentioned SMART, I'm going to mention it too. SMART goal setting, absolutely crucial. You've got to have those clear visions in mind first before you go to any marketing consultant. You've got to know yourself. It's no good thinking, oh, I'm just going to leave it to them, because actually you've got to know your business yourself before you can brief anybody else about it. So yeah.
Now, Jonathan, I imagine you'd wholeheartedly agree with that if you just hand over wads of cash, the chances are you aren't going to get what you actually need or want back.
No, I mean, I suspect you'll get mugged, but not necessarily at knife point. I think the key thing is you can hand over most of it in that sense, but remember, it is a business contract, and rather than necessarily being afraid of it, if you're going to get someone to come in and do your marketing audit for you, you need to then review the results, not necessarily with the person who's done the audit, but with someone who has marketing knowledge and can help you determine what are the nuggets of information to take out of it. A lot of what will come back from a marketing audit is the blindingly obvious. What you need is to be able to read it and filter out the things that make a differentiated strategy and identify objectives that will actually take your business forward in the direction that you want to take it forward. So you don't have to do all the work yourself, but break it up into workable segments, and then if you get on well with the people, maybe one person can take the project from the very beginning all the way through to the results. Maybe you have to call in other people with other expertise to help you through the different stages. But it's all about clarity. It's about clarity of briefing. It's about clarity of objectives. It's about making it absolutely clear how much money is available to do the job, and secondly, how much money are they going to get paid if it is successful, because there are plenty of people out there who will sit there and go, oh yes, we can do that, and have actually very little relevant experience for actually delivering what they promised. I'm not saying that everyone's like that, but we've all seen it happen in the past. What you need to do is just make sure that they do have a good track record, and it's verifiable, and other people are willing to talk to them about them and how they managed to deliver what they said was deliverable. Equally, that they are kept on track.
Sorry, Jonathan, I was just going to say there's obviously a slightly...
I'm sorry, there was a little bit of side noise there.
Okay, sorry, I was just going to say, Jonathan, the other thing is, of course, there's not only the clarity about what you expect, but also what fantasies you might have that the marketing consultant is going to bring in. You need to raise those early on so the marketing consultant can say whether or not they're even doable or possible. Because I think a lot of people
I think it's
have this kind of fantasy that the marketing consultant can solve everything.
Yeah, I think the key thing is that when you write the brief with the objectives, that you perhaps write it yourself, but it is agreed between you and whoever is going to execute that brief, and that you agree what is achievable and what is the expectation, because, and again, you need to have whoever's doing the work for you to effectively manage that expectation, but so there are things like a lot of agencies would say, oh, you've got to raise brand awareness. And if they do say that, then you have to say, right, well, if that is your strategy and brand awareness is what you're going to raise, and we're going to measure it like so, how can you demonstrate that that strategy is going to deliver the additional sales or the additional revenue that I am looking for, that is actually going to fund your fee? So you need to get them to be, if you like, accountable for their activities, and just sort of going, oh, but it's all about brand awareness is not the answer. There has to be something that is effectively a tangible measure that we can all rely on, that says, if from our research brand awareness goes up by 5%, you will see a 1% rise in sales or whatever. But again, it comes back to clear and measurable. And sometimes that's going to require you to set up a separate project that is there to enable the measurement. So if your primary objective is to raise sales, you have to be able to look at how those sales are being increased and be able to sort of things like attribute what proportion of your distribution gain while whatever the marketing activity was going on is actually attributable to the gain in publicity or public awareness, and how much is it down to you going up and signing a fantastic deal with someone. Because there's normally a quid pro quo. Wholesalers and retailers, let's say, will take on additional stock or give you greater distribution because you can demonstrate you are pumping money into above the line and below the line marketing activity.
Yeah. Kevin, I presume you would agree with Jonathan that it's always a good idea for you to write the initial brief and then to, as it were, finalize the brief with the supplier to make sure that any hidden snags, expectations are brought to the surface.
Sure. Yeah. It's at the end of the day, these best relationships work as partnerships, and there's a variety of ways those partnerships can be established. Very much sort of in the news at the minute is the Steve Jobs film, and Steve Jobs was possibly the finest marketeer that existed in the last 50 years. Steve Wozniak was a very great engineer, was able to make great products that were just so innovative and clever, but you know, they needed to be sold to people, and that's Steve Jobs' contribution right there. He looked at those devices and, you know, fired up people's imaginations and said, we want this stuff, and he did that, you know, again and again and again. Not that I'm particularly a fan of Steve Jobs, but I cannot deny that he's one of the finest marketeers.
And that's because he's working in brief with everyone, and that's for a bigger company, it's perhaps easier because they have professional marketeers. But for an SME, and Catherine works with a lot of clients, sort of the small and medium end size of the spectrum. Is it a case, Catherine, that if you don't understand if they don't understand what they want, it's kind of beholden on the marketeer rather than just say yes, 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 but to actually almost do what Jonathan says and Kevin says, and that's work with them to develop a brief that is doable for both sides, where there are specific objectives.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would say, first of all, obviously find a good marketing consultant, someone that you trust. If you don't know anybody, get some reviews, get some advice. But yeah, absolutely, I think it should be a collaboration. And actually, you know, you've got to listen to each other as well. You might be the one behind the brief and you're the one paying the bills, but at the end of the day, you're seeking advice. So there's a certain amount of leeway that you have to say, well, actually, yeah, you probably know this field better than I do. So yeah, let's have some advice. Almost, you know, some marketing consultants I know sort of offering a mentoring service as well. So they're almost guiding you through various processes that you know, a lot of people don't understand. There's an awful lot of jargon out there. There's an awful lot of big words. There's a lot of abbreviated words, and to try and make your way through some of that language can be very confusing. So to have a marketing consultant that's actually going to guide you through that and help you to actually put the best brief together, then you're covering those objectives. You're looking at the end game. What do you want to achieve? And it's their job then to help you achieve that. It's also their job, of course, to be realistic and say, look, you know, let's tailor this to suit you. It's got to suit where you are, what your market is, and what your budget is as well. So yeah, there's a lot of listening on both sides, I think.
Yeah, you'd agree with that, Kevin?
Let me come off mute there. Yeah, absolutely. The core competency of a business is its ability to get its message to the market. That's exactly what marketing is. And you know, you do that right, you're priming the pump for sales that just go through. But you know, you can't just take a naive, simple view on this stuff. It's very much the driver of your business in terms of you know, getting yourself there. You know, the real marketing specialists, you know, they know about, you know, positioning, why you should take, for example, should you take some space on a Grand Prix car? When does that make sense? You know, we've alluded here to things like marketing audience and brand recognition and all those sort of things and those smart objectives, and your expert marketer will navigate you through all those challenges with a minimum of cost and a maximum of value, exploiting the opportunity that your business has.
Yeah, but it is a case of working hand in hand, isn't it? Otherwise, the marketing consultant might deliver something you don't actually need or want, Jonathan.
Yes, it's very easy for them to go off and do, if you like, wild goose chase projects and things like that. I think, you know, when you start out, try and keep it simple, and, you know, try and keep your objectives simple. Don't have too many objectives. You know, if it is boost sales, increase sales by 5, 10, 15%, whatever, make sure everything is in place so that no one can turn around and say, we got the publicity right, but you didn't do this, that, and the other, or there wasn't enough product to sell or whatever. So make sure that if you are looking to increase sales, that you have the supply chain in place to be able to enable yourself to service any increase, and that includes things like being able to answer the telephone and take orders, or whatever it is that, you know, your business process. Goes back to something we said at the very beginning of this whole Marketing Gem series, was always make sure that you understand that every action that you take has a marketing implication. So that's sort of, if that's parked and everyone understands that, then all the other bits fall into place. But keep it simple. Don't try and do too much on the first attempt that you get to work with a marketing consultant. Keep it as clear as you possibly can. Is this is what I want to achieve. You know, I will increase sales by 10%, or I might try and increase my profitability through a more efficient way of getting sales and being able to charge more for what I'm delivering. Have clarity about your objectives. Once you've got your objectives, have clarity about the strategy. How am I going to achieve that objective? And then set out milestones. Set out a clear progression of where we're going to sit and measure and report back to each other as we deliver the deliverables of the marketing plan. Remember, within a marketing plan, you have at least 4 Ps. So you've got, if you like, your pricing, you've got your positioning, you've got your product, you've got your promotion. You've also got things like packaging. All of these things you need to have agreed, and then don't try and move all the goalposts once you've agreed it. If you are going to have to move your price, then sit down with the marketing consultant and say, right, what are the givens and what are the implications of making these changes? Because business is a dynamic thing, and there's always going to be continuous evolution. What you're trying to do, though, is to reduce the opportunities for people to sit there and put their hands up at the end of 12 months and go, well, of course it didn't work because. So you actually want to be in a team where everyone's working on it and progressively evolving it and saying, wow, that worked, we can try this. That worked, we can now build this. So we can put in extra levels of sophistication as things come in and as results occur. What you don't want is people putting everything off and saying, well, you know, give it a chance. If you know that you've pre-agreed what your goalposts are and everything, then everyone's working to an agreed format. You don't always win first time round. You don't always hit all your objectives. So there is a certain amount of leeway. But if you don't put any goalposts up and you don't set any objectives, you don't expect anyone to score any goals.
Right, okay. Catherine, you've been on the end of many a brief. What's the most horrendous and why, without naming the client?
Oh, goodness me. Well, to be honest, most of the most horrendous briefs tend to be the ones that are so completely open-ended, you have no idea where to start. You need something from the customer to start with. You know, if someone says to me, "Oh, I need some flags." Okay, great. What sort of size? Where are they going to go? What do you want on them? Are they going to be more than one? Are you just having a logo? You're having some designs? What are they actually for? And they sort of shrug their shoulders and go, I don't know. Thinking that I'm going to come up with all that information. And that just makes it drag on and on, of course, because nobody really knows where they're going. So customers need to have some sort of idea of what they're actually asking me to do. Yeah, open-ended briefs are the worst.
Okay, so if we just talk about tip of the weeks for this week's subject, because we are coming towards the end of the show, what would your one tip be, Kevin?
I think we've alluded to it earlier. It's use SMART objectives. If you don't know what that is, Google SMART and read the Wikipedia article. That will ensure that at least you know what you're asking for.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'd agree with reading Wikipedia, but I do know what you mean. There are several good online business dictionaries as well. Jonathan?
Clarity, simplicity. Don't be too ambitious the first time you try and do it. Make sure that you have probably one, maybe two clear, simple objectives, and that all the bits that make up the SMART are in place to be able to measure it and to keep everyone to the goalposts.
Yeah. Catherine, I suppose yours would be specific after your last comment.
Yeah, maybe. I was actually going to add, identify your competitors. Identify what it is that you're doing in your marketplace. If you identify who competitors are, you can identify how you want to do things better, cheaper, quicker, smarter. Know who you are and where you want to go.
Okay, and you're watching the Marketing Gem, and you can get in touch with us through Twitter at the Marketing Gem, which is a Link for Growth TV show. And each week, at the end of each show, I ask our panelists to talk about something that is unrelated to the subject we've talked about, so it gives them a chance to comment on some hot news and how it affects marketing in SMEs or a topical subject and how it reflects. So, Kevin, what would be your one tip of the week that has anything to do with marketing?
My tip of the week, actually, I mentioned it earlier, is go and see a movie. Go and see the Steve Jobs movie, Danny Boyle, Kate Winslet, and see how a ninja marketeer really works.
Okay. Catherine?
I like the term ninja marketeer. I'm definitely going to see the film. My top tip would be take stock, have a look at your company, have a look at the way that you're operating, and see if things need freshening up a bit. Maybe with a bit of fresh stationery, maybe with a fresh approach, maybe with a few updates to a website. Have a look, see if things need freshening up.
Okay. Jonathan, what would be your one kind of general tip in marketing at the moment that's current and topical?
Cool. I think that, sort of at this time of year, you're actually thinking about the new year. Make sure you're planning for, January, February, March. And there is no harm with having, as Catherine said, a completely fresh approach. But plan. Don't be subject to changes in what's going on around you. So try and be the person who manages your destiny rather than allowing that to fall to the likes of the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the next recession.
So it's already a good time to start thinking about what to do in January, you're saying?
Basically, yes. 2016 is not that far away now.
Yeah, that's true. It's, 9 weeks or so, I suppose. But yeah, that is a really good point. My tip of the week is to make sure that you understand what your expectations are. It kind of relates to what we've been talking about, but make sure that you don't have any hidden agendas. So I would heartily endorse the comments made earlier on by Jonathan and Kevin about making sure that all the hidden aspects of the brief, the unset expectations, what I call the psychological parts of the contract, come to the fore. It's amazing the number of times where people have said do this or do that, and they imagine that something else is going to happen to what is actually produced. And that's purely and simply because they haven't been clear with the brief. Be clear with the brief and make sure that any of these hidden bits are, as I said, mentioned, brought to the fore and discussed before you start the project. Okay, well that's it for this week's Marketing Gem. It's been, I think, a really interesting one. Hopefully we've helped a few SMEs identify that marketing isn't a black art. It's all quite general and plain and simple, but it does help to have an expert on side. But you've got to brief that expert properly, and hopefully you've learned a little bit today about how to brief those experts. So from me, it's cheerio.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Please use the taglines on the hashtags, etc., to get in touch with us, and don't be afraid to get in touch with us if you think that you could do with some help on appointing a marketing consultant, stroke setting objectives, or writing a brief.
That's a really good piece of advice. Kevin?
At the Marketing Gem, as it shows on your lower third there, Diane, just tweet us and we'll do our best to respond to you.
Okay, and Catherine?
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin stole my little bit of thunder there. I was going to do the same thing at the Marketing Gem. Find us on Twitter, and we'll be happy to chat. See you again soon.
Okay, well, I'm going to trump you all by showing this, and this is the end graphic, and it shows you where everyone is and how to get hold of everyone. And I'd like to thank you for watching this week's show. As they all said, you can get in touch with us via the Marketing Gem, or you can contact each individual person involved in the Marketing Gem via the Twitter accounts that are listed here. So thank you very much for joining us for this week's show, and we hope it's been useful, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye-bye.